Alrighty. So, yeah. So, can you like explain to me what the problem with AOC here is? Because
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Oh,
Hold
not
on.
ready yet? Okay, sorry.
Hold on 1 second. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, here's my thing. I listened to the AOC, what do you call it? Live stream from yesterday.
And so I hide behind my door like this. Like I'm here, and the bathroom door starts going like this. Like the bathroom door is behind me, or rather in front of me, and I'm like this, and the door hinges right here. And I just hear, "Where is she? Where is she?" And this was the moment where I thought everything was over. I don't even know if I held my breath, but I was just, here behind there, and I just start sliding down. And then all of a sudden I hear my staffer G yell out. And he's like, hey, it's okay. Come out. And I come out, and this man is a Capitol Police officer. G was sizing him up and didn't know if he was going to have to fight him. Like that is how like aggressive the situation was in that moment. And we couldn't even tell, we couldn't read if like this was a good situation or a bad situation. It was so like, like so many other communities in this country, like just that presence doesn't necessarily give you a clear signal if you're safe or not. And so the situation did not feel okay. And then he just looks at me and yells at me, and he just go down and then go to this other building. And it wasn't until we get to that building that we realize he didn't give us a specific location. He didn't give us a room. He didn't give us a place to go to. He just gave us, he said, go down. He told us to go to a certain level of a certain building. And that level of that building was street level. And so we can hear, because the buildings were not secure yet, and this is around the time when the Capitol was being stormed, that we can like hear all of these rioters behind the glass of the doors, and we have no specific location to go to. We're in the hallway. We're in like the Dunkin' Donuts of the basement, and we don't have any secure place to go. And so we're in just an open hallway, and we hear the yells of these people trying to break into the building that we're in. And I'm just like, I don't know where to go.
I'm more upset about what she's talking about with Ted Cruz.
Well, right, but like, doesn't that have like some context to do with it, right?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, someone's backstory doesn't necessarily change the fact that, I mean, an emotional story about the reason why it was a more emotional, it was more traumatic for her doesn't make it more true for her to turn down what they've been calling for, which is actual unity on something that what made me so
well, yeah.
I was praising her. I was getting shit on for praising her. I was like, well, I'm watching in Stocky's Stocky live streaming with her. And I'm going like, wow, I can't believe I'm agreeing with AOC. She can be right about things sometimes. Like, this is great,
Mm-hmm. In regards to what?
About how she was upset about the actions that like Robinhood had taken.
Oh, yeah.
And so with the way that everything worked out with the stock market and the short sellers, and pretty much just screwing the little guy, and what are they calling it? Wall Street versus Main Street, that whole idea. And so I even saw someone had screenshot, I don't use the tweeter. Someone sent me a screenshot. Ted Cruz, fully agree. And I was like, we're going to do it, guys. Like, this is what's going to happen. This is it. This is something we can all fucking agree on, because this isn't really truly capitalism. People like me who like capitalism, this isn't like the big guy helping the little guy work his way up the ladder to support his family type of capitalism that we talk about. This is bullshit. So fuck them and fuck all the hedge funds, right?
Mm.
And then I was so mad when I saw what she said.
Yeah, no, I know what she said. She said something along the lines of, "I'm willing to work with conservatives and Republicans on certain issues, but when you actively like put my life in danger, like fuck you." Yeah, like
tried to get me killed.
Yeah.
You need to resign if you want to help. You should resign.
Right. So like, I think that's not like the worst response in the world. Like, here's an example. If you had a coworker, right, who had a friend and they let this person in and they like went on a shooting spree inside of the work, right? And
you're acting like he opened the doors and let them in.
I could defend.
Be hyperbolic about
I could defend that point. Yeah, like why did these people?
Happened.
Why did these people
cannot
think?
Connect those dots.
No, I can. Here, let me do it for you.
No, but that's what AOC is doing, and I don't make those same conclusions. So I'm going to disagree.
Why do you? Why do you think? But why do you think?
Disagree.
Right, but like, maybe I have a different like way of explaining it that might like resonate with you a little bit more, right? So basically, like, if you had a coworker, right, that like did that and they went on a shooting spree, you probably you wouldn't feel safe working with that coworker anymore. And they were like, dude, look, it was like a crazy thing that happened. I didn't even know that they had a gun or something like that. Well, I can make the direct link to Ted Cruz in this, and Holly, where Ted Cruz, even his professors at Harvard or wherever the fuck he went, came out and were like, you are a highly educated lawyer. You know exactly what the legality of everything that happened. You know exactly how how untruthful you were being in pushing the whole voter fraud situation, right? Ted Cruz knew it. Everybody that was like reasonable in terms of like talking about the voter fraud stuff knew that it was unreasonable, and that like if there was any evidence they would have come forward with it, right? And Ted Cruz continued to push it. And then on the floor he was saying, well, more than half of Republicans think that there was something fishy, and even some Democrats and a lot of independents think that there was something fishy. But why did they think that there was something fishy? Because he was actively going out of his way to say that there was something fishy going on, right? So if you're creating the conditions that makes people really upset, right, and then you're continuing to push that thing that that upsets people, right, and makes them feel like they have no voice in this country, and then they act out against that, why wouldn't you like have some responsibility or like bear some like moral responsibility at the least?
This is the problem, and this is why people like me and you will never agree about these types of issues. I had a really interesting conversation with Vivian Wolf about this, and progressives and conservatives will never come down to agreements on these types of issues, because people that are conservative believe in personal responsibility and personal choices. And even if somebody did lead you right up to the Capitol building, you should never do something to put other people in harm's way.
Well,
and progressives believe the absolute opposite, that other people lead you to the circumstances that make you do bad things.
Well,
and
there's
but
we're conflating things. Like, so look,
you and me.
But no, I can
You
say
believe-
both things are simultaneously true. Like it is just like psychologically true that a lot of what we do is societally influenced, right? There's a study there's a video of this where they made a whole joke out of this psychological study. They had a whole bunch of people in a room, right? And this lady comes in, and every time this bell went off, everyone else in the room stood up and they sat down. And after 3 bells, this woman just looking around, not understanding why, no one explained it to her, she just started doing it too. And then they slowly filtered out, right? Like they kept on calling. Oh shit, my internet cut. What point did I cut out at?
about everybody that's like following suit with the people in front
Right.
of them.
Yeah. So like this is just like a
But
psychological.
I don't see how that is, anyone else's fault but the people in front of them. Or but their own personal responsibility. Like, why not blame yourself for being an idiot and just following the people in front of you?
Because
You're
like,
making a bad fucking decision and you're gonna think like, oh well, I just follow what the other people do in front of me, but it's their fault.
So like, but here's the thing, like
wrong.
but
That's
that's just like not how people work. We have less autonomy than that. Now, if we are able to like separate out what everyone else is doing and what you're doing, that's like a good thing to be able to do. I try and do that, and I've actively been trying to do that with my beliefs with like lefty things. I used to think I was a communist. I'm not a communist. I had to step away from what everyone on Twitter was saying, but the how much your environment affects you is very significant for human beings. This is just a psychological fact, right? And when people that you trust, people that are leaders that like you believe in and that you will like take their word, like basically are doing calls to action and are telling you that something's wrong and that your democracy is being taken away from you, and then people that are being informed by them are saying, yeah, no, we gotta fucking rise up. Like, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if you watched the AOC live stream, people knew that this was going to happen for like a week or 2 in advance. They were getting warnings. Right?
I can't have this conversation with you without pointing out some sort of
Sure.
hypocrisy in your
Well, yeah.
arguments.
Well, what is the
Because of
hypocrisy?
course there were calls to this violence from the left as well. Maxine Waters did the same thing. Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris all did same things. But I'm not going to do that because I already know
They were saying to storm the
that the
Capitol?
left. What was that? No. About things that led to what I would consider the Black Lives Matter riots.
Okay, but like
And
we
I'm
can
not
talk
going
about that. Like I'm not. But here's
I'm
the
not
thing.
going to do
Even
that.
if they
I'm
did
not
that,
going
like
to do
that's
that because there is no reason for me to be bringing up hypocrisy in this circumstance, because
Sure.
I already know that conservatives are a subspecies to people on the left, and that no matter what the Republican Party does or people that support conservative ideology, we are not allowed to stand up for anything that remotely resembles any ideas that lean traditional values or whatever. We can't stand up for anything like that because we
But,
are not
like,
people
what do you
to you.
mean by that? That number one, that's not true. Not by a long shot.
No,
I
no,
have
no, I'm
conservative
serious. No
family.
matter what we were going to do, no matter what it is, you will always say that we don't have any right to do it.
That's just not right. That's not true whatsoever. I
It's
don't know what you're
absolutely
talking.
true.
Like I don't know what this. Where
It's
this
always
victim
going to be
complex comes
either
from.
because it's
But,
caused
like,
by
like,
disinformation or whatever it is. And so I've
what
already
do you-
started
what-
to
no,
start
this is like
accepting
this
that.
is so like outside of the conversation that I wanted to have, right? Like, so I want to move off of this, but like, why is AOC wrong in this instance, right?
Because you're making a connection that Ted Cruz literally opened up the doors called in the MAGA rioters and told them to come in and try to kill AOC.
I didn't say that he literally opened up the doors, but he certainly riled up people in terms of his rhetoric and in terms of what he was supporting. Do you not agree that he was one of the people that was actively saying that they're like, we at least need to look into the voter fraud instead of trying to say, look, guys, we've had an election. We need to accept the results of it. There's not been any evidence that's been brought forward. Like, do you not recognize that there's an irresponsibility with his rhetoric as a leader in our country? Do you not think that a leader in our country has a responsibility for, like, informing people correctly? Or do you think that everyone is just a completely free agent and should not listen to anything that any information that they're given, that they have to research every single point by themselves? Because I would say that if that's the case, then there's no point in having a society if we can't, like, trust each other, right?
I'm kind of starting to believe that we are at that point.
Just to not have a society?
No, that we're at this point of not being able to really trust each other.
But whose fault is that in terms of, like, this specific instance? Whose fault is that? Who were the ones that were actively saying
I
that this
don't
is...
blame Ted Cruz.
I'm saying, who were the people that were saying that this was there was the possibility of voter fraud and that we need to at least look into it?
But I'm a person that also agrees with this. I'm not one of those Republicans that is like, oh, there was no election fraud, and that it's something that wasn't oh, Biden won fair and square, and we all just need to, like, get on with it. So I'm not one of those people. There's plenty of other conservatives on Twitch that believe that. I'm not one of them. So.
Well, I don't really want to get into a voter fraud discussion because I'll just ask the same question over and over. But like, like, I guess that's the only way that this discussion can go forward, is to, like, say, like, if there was voter fraud, why didn't they bring something forward? They always said it was going to come, like, out the next day. We need one more day. We need one more day. Or they brought up all these things that went to trial with conservative judges that were appointed by Trump. If they really had something going on, why wasn't there, like, something brought forward that was a substantial voter fraud?
I don't think that there was something brought forward. I think that we wanted to see something actually go through an actual vote, the court process, that we didn't actually see. Everything was dismissed before we could actually see something move forward properly.
Because they would never allege that there was voter fraud, or in very, very rare cases they did.
But that's what I'm saying. So I think that if something was brought forward through the courts, it would have been
I'm saying
better
that
for
Trump's
the American
team.
people.
Well, I'm saying Trump's team, like the lawyers that were representing these cases, didn't want to be disbarred because they knew that the evidence that they had wasn't of voter fraud. And so when they went to the judges, they would ask them, like, do you have the evidence that you're bringing to court to, like, so that we can hear this case? Does it have voter fraud in it? What is the allegation here? And they would say, well, it's not voter fraud per se. I won't say that it's voter fraud, but it's something that, like, we should definitely have a trial over. And then the judges would say, like, well, if we don't know what the trial is going to be over, then what is the point in doing this? That's why it wasn't brought to court, right? There's a lot of different things that you have to look at for why they weren't brought to court. It wasn't just saying, well, I don't feel like it.
No, I understand that, but I think it should have been much more transparent so that the American people could have seen it better.
But
Like,
here's the
we
thing, it
weren't
was
shown
transparent.
that.
I know about it. I don't have, like, special information that I'm privy to. This is very easily accessible information, but that just bolsters my point when we look at Ted Cruz and people like him who were, like, actively pushing these conspiracies and saying that there was a possibility, right, that the election was stolen, right? That, like, they are the ones that you're getting your information from, or they're the ones that are leading the charge on this, right? And if you don't have correct information, or you don't even know where to look because these people are pointing you in the exact opposite direction, then of course you're not going to, like, know why they're the cases were thrown out. I'm not privy to any extra information that you would be unable to get, right? I'm a layman. I'm a college student. I don't have any press credentials, but I can just look at why things happened. It's public. It's like in the public
Right.
sphere.
But we do know that there was voter fraud.
There's
It
always
just
voter
was
fraud.
always said that there wasn't enough. Right, exactly. There's always voter fraud, but just in this particular case, there wasn't enough to have made a difference. So I just wanted to
No, not
actually
in
see
most
that.
cases. In most cases, there's voter fraud that doesn't make a difference, and usually it's not like
Exactly.
found
That's what
within like a
that's what they're
couple of
always saying.
days.
I understand that's what they always say, right? But I wanted to see an actual public court hearing with evidence put on the table that would have said how much there was done and how much was significant.
But that's not how any of these voter fraud cases work. They don't like go into the never in the history of our election cycles has there been like this big push to
I
say like
understand that.
yeah. And so like what
I
they do
understand that.
they prosecute the individuals, right? And if we like look at what individuals are prosecuted and we see which ones are being like how many people are getting charged for this, right? Then we can see like, oh well shit, there's like a 0.0000 like 325 or what the fuck ever like number. I know it's like several orders of magnitude less than 1% of votes are usually found to be voter fraud because it's a high risk, low reward crime.
So you're saying that either way, no matter what, that you think whether this is true or not, that Ted Cruz is personally responsible for
He is one of the people that are responsible.
the attempted assassination of AOC.
Okay, do you think that if you organize something that puts people's lives in danger, that you have to like be held accountable for like the singular assassination of someone, or can you like be held accountable for like?
Hold on. I want you to be very specific about not like be very
okay,
specific.
yeah. Let me see if I can think of a analogy here. So like, let's say that you want like you have like a bunch of people that are like pretty pissed off. Say that like there's you guys had a box of like comic books or some shit, right? And they're just gone, right? And everyone's real pissed off and mad about it. And there's like a rumor going around that the comic book store down the street has a like might have that box of comic books, right? And like everyone's real mad, and then some people are like, yeah, I'm like fairly certain that those people have the comic books, and either way we should go over there and we should like check out like whether or not they have the comic books. And then everyone goes over there, right? And there's like a couple of people that are really riling people up and really saying like, look, like I'm almost certain like like there's a huge possibility these people have our comic books over there. And then everyone goes over there and they storm in there and they start causing like a big fucking riot, and there's some property damage. Do you think that like the people like involved like have to like, or like say even like someone got assaulted, now do you think that you could prosecute that person for saying this person told them to assault that person? Or is it more likely that, like what I'm saying is he is one of the people that told people to go over there and put people in danger of being assaulted or of doing property damage?
That is way too much of mental gymnastics. It's absolutely not true.
I don't know how much more clear I can be.
They did not do that because I don't feel this. I don't feel like. I don't want to talk about hypocrisy on your side anymore, and it is so hard not to do it. But
here, yeah,
for a very long time, the people on the left, the progressives, have been cheering on the riots and the violence of Black Lives Matter movement forever. And they cheer it on because they think it's for the right movements, right?
Sure, but here's the distinction I can make. I don't think that the
particular situation, I can say, well, if I was to blame Maxine Waters for an assault on one person because she said you get out there and you'd push back on them, it would be the same situation.
Right, but no one's saying that. But no one's saying that Ted Cruz was like trying to get like AOC directly killed.
That's exactly what AOC said. That's exactly what she said. She said you tried to have me killed.
He put everyone in that building, especially progressive Democrats and people like AOC, in immense danger. So yeah, you can make the case that like he was trying to get her killed. Now, was that like what like I think that he was doing? No, but like the how like morally different these things are. Like whether or not they're like that morally different, consequentially, it is the same. Like AOC was like inches away from death. You recognize that, right? And there were people that like led people to believe that the things that they were rioting for were legitimate. Like that's my biggest thing. Like she was in
You're
a bath,
saying
like,
that.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're just saying that what bothers you the most is that what they were writing about was not legitimate.
Yes. Like,
and you would have been
like,
okay with it if it was something that you
I think that
were
there are
more
riots.
comfortable with.
Right. So this is how I like.
If it was a progressive movement, perhaps.
No, not because if it's a progressive movement. I don't like do tribalism that hard, right? So this is how I like talk about like riots or protests or what the fuck ever, like political violence in the context of like how it happens in the US, right? If there are like legitimate reasons, I can look at it and say, I understand why this thing is happening. Now, should they like be going out and burning down buildings and stuff? Probably not, but it's really, really understandable that like if we've had these riots every couple of years for the past like what 5 decades because of massive inequality and because of police brutality and like all sorts of different like factors that all kind of boil up to the surface because of like a single like sparking event, right? We have these riots like every couple of years because of the same reasons. And if we just like address the underlying reason, maybe we can avoid having the riots in the future. I don't think that rioting is like necessarily a good thing, but it can be understandable. In this case, I can't understand it.
I was the one that agreed with when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement when it very first happened. Well, not when it very first happened. When in the beginning of the summer.
Yeah.
I had said that sometimes there's political violence that needs to happen, and I was very against the looting, for example, and the arson. But I thought, for example, even though it was against their own best interests, when they targeted the police station, I said at least that makes sense. They're not targeting small businesses. I said they're making more of a political statement in that way.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
And I said, at least it makes sense. Stop targeting mom and pop shops. I
agree with that, like 100%. And again, when it comes to like the mom and pop shops, like I don't think that anyone was like going out of their way to target those things. The police station, they absolutely were. Like that was something that they like all like went to specifically, and there was a big concerted effort to say fuck you police, right? But with like the mom and pop shops, I don't think that there was a concerted effort for like them to say fuck you mom and pop shops.
Well, they did, because they weren't protesting anything. They just wanted free stuff. Had nothing to do with like coming up with those were just people there were 3 types of people that were participating. There were the people that are actually trying to protest. There were the people that were trying to cause destruction and mayhem, and then there were the people that were just trying to get on the come up. So, and all 3 of those people participated, and not all of them had the best intentions.
Yeah, and there were people like that at the
Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, and there were certainly people like that at the riot, at the like Capitol Hill insurrection. But we have to talk about like what the
absolutely agree.
Yeah, but we have to talk about like ratios and percentages and like what the fuck was like how many people from each group were there. I would say at the Black Lives Matter protest, like most of the people there were saying I really quick.
Talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, because
really
when
quick,
we were talking about Black Lives Matter, I was really disappointed that when we're as a conservative that's concerned about government overreach, you guys had me. You guys had a bunch of people like me. When we saw what happened to George Floyd, we were shocked and we wanted to get on board with the movement. And then it turned into something that became racially motivated and anti-family, and the whole movement
Right,
turned
but
into
I
something that
I
we
don't
couldn't get behind.
no, and I would love to have that
So,
conversation. This is like a huge pivot away from what we were talking about, like in terms of just
okay.
like the morality of like riots and like when I can understand it and stuff. Like I feel like we can talk about that without like going into BLM. That's a separate topic that we can definitely do sometime, right? But I want
Okay,
to
now
like
we have Black Lives Matter and the homelessness in California that we have to think about.
yeah, no, I need to read back up on the California thing because I've been reading so much and my small liberal brain can only handle so much information. But so when we're talking about like rights, like basically when I look at when a large group of people come together and do something that can be criticized heavily in terms of violence, in terms of like whatever, like I try and take a step back and try and see why they're doing it, right? I think that for Black Lives Matter, we can look at the overwhelming majority of BLM protests and say that they're at like 90, what was it? The Harvard study that looked at every single instance of BLM from like the beginning of the summer until like November or something, said that 93% of them were peaceful and what is it? 7% of them were violent, right? So like, yeah, the violence was pretty bad and like, but I can understand why people were like really fucking mad because this shit's been going on for a long time. We haven't really addressed the underlying issues. How do we make this not happen again? Right? That's how I kind of look at things. I try to look at a problem that is happening and say, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Do we increase police force, which doesn't seem like that has helped in the past, or do we fix the underlying issues that cause these riots to happen every couple of years? That seems to be the go-to answer. I mean, even MLK said like the riots, the language of riot is the language of the unheard. We need to, until we address these problems, there will never be an end to this violence, right? He said that in fucking the 1960s, and it's continued to happen, just as he predicted, because that's a very easy way to explain why people, like, why this keeps happening, right? Whereas with the Capitol Hill storming, I can't understand that because all available evidence that I can look at, right? All available evidence. And I really, really try to make sure that if I'm going to try and like, if I'm going to die on a hill, right? I want to make sure that I have as much, like I can steel man the other side's argument as much as possible. And I just couldn't. I couldn't find anything that was like sketchy enough to where like there wasn't an explanation that was reasonable for like why that thing happened. Most of the things that people were upset about were things that happened every single election cycle. They weren't weird things. It was just like the buckets of ballots under the tables. That's like a normal fucking thing where they have to keep them somewhere so that they can start counting the next batch of ballots. Like there's like 100 different things that I've heard, and that's why I don't understand and why I can't really like give the same moral credence to the people that stormed the Capitol, right? And why I can be a lot more critical of the people that were pushing these things, especially highly educated. Like I hate Ted Cruz. I don't like him. I've voted against him like 3 or 4 times since I've become voting age. I dislike the dude, right? And but I can recognize that he's a very educated person. He's a smart dude. But what he was doing here was purely for political capital. And through his like search for political capital, trying to make sure that like when I'm sure in 2024, when he wants to run for president, he's going to try and court a lot of Trump supporters. That's what he was doing here. And I think that we can draw that moral distinction pretty easily.
What exactly did he try to do?
He tried
Push a
to
narrative, push the false narrative.
So what he did, him specifically, he was trying to and I think he even knew this, that it wasn't going to happen. He was trying to make it to where they did like a 1 week audit of all of the election to find as much voter fraud as possible to try like assuage the fears of the people that thought that there was voter fraud. But in the leading up to that action, that specific action, he was saying, well, this is kind of weird, like, I don't know, like, if there's like something weird here, we ought to investigate it, right? And not pushing back against the very like easily debunkable claims that there was like voter fraud, right? So in this way, he actively created the conditions that led to the Capitol Hill riots. Whereas like Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi, they didn't like directly like create the conditions of the BLM riots. And I feel like that's an entirely defensible like moral distinction between these things.
I can see where you make those distinctions, but I can also see where it falters in how
Sure.
one party has a group of people that aren't directly sent out to do something awful to people, and yet they'll still blame the people that, I don't know, support them subliminally.
I'm not sure if I follow. And again, this isn't about like party distinction. I don't like the Democratic Party. Most of them are like spineless fuck. Their spines are made of overcooked spaghetti noodles. Okay, I do not like the Democratic Party. So I don't like have
I'm
any.
starting to feel the same way about the Republicans either. So it's the same way about the Republicans too.
Yeah, there's the way the Republican Party works is there's a bunch of people that are really spineless, and then there's like 3 people that have spines of fucking steel. And that's how everyone falls in line. But anyways, the like that's like kind of the thing. I'm not like saying that one party is correct and one party is not. Right, I'm saying that in these 2 instances, because if the Democratic Party like had done the same thing and like were like going out of their way to like really ramp people up, and like especially like these really unfortunately like radicalized people like the QAnon people, right? Like there were people there that were just like teachers and shit that had been radicalized by pretty wacky stuff, and I feel bad for them.
Is like a fringe group. I feel like people on the
I
left
don't
think that like
know.
everyone is a Q.
I don't think that everyone is, but I think that most of the people that were there were. I think that in this instance, like we saw a bunch of people that were QAnon supporters, like all kind of coalesce for this event.
I don't know if that's true or not. The people that were there were mostly Anons or whatever, but I can definitely assure you that most people that are conservatives are definitely not QAnons.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Like I've never said that all conservatives or even most conservatives are QAnon believers by any means. That would actually be like the stupidest position I hold if I were to say that. But I think that it is a significant enough a number of people that there were enough of them that were willing to travel down to or up to or wherever direction to DC and kind of coalesce around like like it's kind of like almost death cult like mentality, like we're going to lose our country. And all the QAnon conspiracies, adrenochromes, whatever the fuck you want to like, however far each individual was, they think that they like were saving the nation, right? And in that like instance, like I feel bad for these people because they've been obviously misled to a huge degree. But I don't think that it's unreasonable to say that most of the people that stormed the Capitol that day were at least in some way influenced by QAnon type rhetoric or type conspiracies.
I still don't see the connection. You still have not convinced me that this is Ted Cruz's fault, that he personally told people to go.
Well, I don't think
and
it's
storm the
solely
Capitol.
on him. Again, I don't think it's solely on Ted Cruz. I think that there's like quite a few people in government, and I think
Okay,
that there's a
then
huge
let's
number of people that are
let's move past that then,
sure.
really quick. because I don't think we're going to agree on that. Do you think that AOC should have reached across the aisle and tried to work with him on trying to get to the bottom of what happened with Robin Hood?
I don't know. So I think that like I can understand her position and like how she went about it. I think that in general, like she said in her statement where everyone's mad about it, that she's willing to work with conservatives and like towards like specific goals, but she doesn't want to work with people that she sees as ringleaders in the thing that like happened at the Capitol, right? In the same way, like if a coworker that I had like let someone in, they had like in some way led to believe that there was something crazy happening at my work, and they like shot up a bunch of people, or they like almost shot up a bunch of people, I also wouldn't want to work with them anymore. Like I understand that feeling, and I don't think that it's like that crazy of a position for her to take.
I mean, it sounds like that you would be calling for him to resign then, just altogether.
Yeah, I would have called for him to resign about a couple of things, mostly like just being really spineless, like not being able to like hold up for anything that he's done, or like the weird thing where he defended what was it, like the sex toy ban that they were trying to put in Texas or some shit. Like that shit's weird, and like he shouldn't like go for these things, but he'll do anything that's politically advantageous for himself.
Then it's kind of stupid for anybody to be talking about unity then at this point, because if we have people
No.
that are refusing to work with each other, then it's really kind of a dumb.
Well, this is what I think. I think that
right now.
there are a couple of people that are completely unwilling to work together and like unify, like both in the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, right? I think the Republican Party right now, like after like what is it, 4 years of Trump, and then like they had the Senate even before that. Like I think that they are very open about not being willing to. They're very, very open about not willing to negotiate or come together when they're in power. And the Democrats, the reason that I don't like them is that they're not willing to hold to their principles when they are not in power. I don't think that we should have like gridlock, but at the same time, there are certain things that they've acquiesced on that I think that they should have been more principled on. So I think that the Democratic Party is a bunch of old codgers that are way more willing to get along with the Republicans than the Republicans are ever willing to get along with the Democrats. Or at least a couple of ringleaders that are the kind of like the heads. So look at like Mitch McConnell, look at Ted Cruz, people like that. They're kind of like the thought leaders for the Republicans, and if they don't, if they say we're not going to come together on any of these points, then none of the other Republicans are. I think that the Republican Party is kind of being held hostage by these people.
I wish I could talk more, but I do have to go.
Okie dokie. Well, yeah. I
we
hope to
already
talk to you soon.
planned
Yeah.
on talking about homelessness in California at sometime soon.
Yeah, I stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So any of those days that you're down to talk, just hit me up. And I usually don't plan very far ahead. So,
and we can continue this too if you want.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks
well,
a lot,
nice talking
man.
to you. I'll talk to you later.
All right, later.